time to time, but my teammates have always had my back. Willie says the same thing happened when he played. Hockey is like that. On any good team, the things that make you different don't matter. It's the things you have in common that pull you together. When you're wearing the same sweater, nothing else should matter. So no, racism never stopped me from being a hockey player, but it did stop me from being just a hockey player. Whether I wanted it or not, I was always a black hockey player. Not that I minded being a black hockey player, but it was a reminder of how difficult the road ahead could have been for me. If you're a white kid, you probably never have to think about these things because every one of your heroes looks like you. Everyone in the Hockey Hall of Fame looks like you. The guy hoisting the Stanley Cup looks like you. Every number one draft pick looks like you. In fact, everyone in the whole draft. You get the picture. That's no one's fault, but it does make it hard to dream about the NHL as a career when you're black. Harder, anyway. But I definitely had those dreams. So naturally, I was always aware of the careers of black players in the NHL. It is impossible to exaggerate what Claude Vilgrain meant to me as a kid. Or Tony McKinley. You're never going to accomplish something you don't dream of, and I know that seeing stars like Fuhr made my dream feasible. Don't get me wrong, I had a lot of the same idols as the other kids. I loved Gretzky and wanted to be like Messier, but it was people like Fuhr, Vilgrain, and McKinley who kept my dream alive. They gave me an answer for whenever the same awkward question came up. I wish I had known about Willie O'Ree back then. Maybe McKinley and Vilgrain knew about him, but I didn't. I wasn't much of a history buff. I was just a kid in love with sports, hockey, and the Oilers, in that order. Later on, I learned about his legacy, of course. It would have been impossible not to. But I didn't meet Willie until my rookie year in the NHL. I broke into the league in 1996-97. As it happens, Willie came back into the league with the NHL's diversity program just the year before. I was at an event in Raleigh, North Carolina, put on by the league to make sure minority kids knew that they were welcome in our game. We were playing road hockey with kids who barely knew which end of the stick to hold, but everyone was having a blast. Then a member of the NHL head office brought over an older gentleman to introduce him. That's when I met the Jackie Robinson of hockey. It's hard to explain the effect of meeting Willie O'Ree. I don't just mean as a black hockey player. He is as warm and good-natured as anyone you'll ever meet. He's not looking for attention, not looking for the spotlight. If you talk to Willie for 5 minutes, it will be clear that he's there just because he wants to help. Shake his hand and you'll realize that he could probably have crushed a billiard ball back when he was in his prime. Willie must have been a handful when he played. How good was Willie O'Ree? For one thing, he played back when there were only 6 teams in the league, so that tells you that he was one of the best 132 players in the world back then. Today, a spot on an NHL roster means you're one of the best 713. So Willie was good. But there's more. As you may already know, Willie played with only one eye. I couldn't believe that when I heard it. And he suffered the injury before he made the NHL. He could easily have called it a career after a severe injury like that. I can't even imagine playing the game without peripheral vision and without depth perception. To break into the best league in the world and to put up the kind of numbers Willie did over the course of his professional career while working against that kind of disadvantage is nothing short of astonishing. Hockey can get a little dirty at times. If a hockey player thinks he can get away with something, he'll try. If he thinks he can intimidate you, he will. And it works. Some guys don't want to fight through that every shift. And when you watch highlights of old games, you see that guys got away with a lot more back then. It's not easy being a hockey player, and it was even harder back when Willie played. But Willie wasn't just a hockey player. He was a black hockey player. He was the only black hockey player, the first. He knew that every eye was on him, every shift. I can only imagine the target a black rookie would have had on his back in 1958. He knew that every pest and every tough guy and every loudmouth fan thought they could get under his skin. And I'm sure they tried. He would be navigating the ice with his one good eye, not knowing where the attack might come from, but knowing that, in some ways, he was all alone, because he was the first. And Willie just put on that smile And